But not peanuts either. And money itself becomes a problem after a while. You can't just stuff it into your wallet and then shell out a bunch of crumpled 20s and dog-eared 10s when you want a pool built in your backyard or an addition put on your house. Once you get past a certain point, you have to explain where that money came from. And if your explanations aren't convincing enough, you're apt to wind up wearing a number yourself.
So there was a need for Andy's services. They took him out of the laundry and installed him in the library. But if you wanted to look at it another way, they never took him out of the laundry at all. They just sent him to work washing dirty money instead of dirty sheets. He funneled into the stocks, bonds, tax-free, municipals, you name it.
He told me once about 10 years after that day on the plate shop roof that his feelings about what he was doing were pretty clear, and that his conscience was relatively untroubled. The rackets would have gone on with him or without him. He had not asked to be sent to Shawshank, he went on. He was an innocent man who had been victimized by colossal bad luck, not a missionary or a do-gooder.
Besides, Red, he told me with the same half grin, what am I doing here? Isn't all of that different from what I was doing outside? I'll hand you a pretty cynical axiom. The amount of expert financial help an individual or company need rises in direct proportion to how many people that person or business is screwing.
The people who run this place are stupid, brutal monsters for the most part. The people who run the straight world are brutal and monstrous, but they happen to not be quite as stupid, because the standard of competence out there is a little higher. Not much, but a little. But the pills, I said. I don't want to tell you your business, but they make me nervous. Reds, uppers, downers, nembutals. Now they've got these things they call phase 4s. I won't get anything like that. Never have. No, Andy said. I don't like the pills either. Never have. But I'm not much of a one for cigarettes or booze either. But I don't push the pills. I don't bring them in. And I don't sell them once they're in. Mostly it's the screws who do that. But, yeah, I know. There's a fine line there when it comes down to Red, if some people refuse to get their hands dirty at all, that's called sainthood, and the pigeons land on your shoulder and crap all over your shirt. The other extreme is to take a bath in the dirt and deal any goddamn thing that will turn dollar guns, switchblades, big H. What the hell? You ever have a con come up to you and offer you a contract?
I nodded it. It happened a lot of times over the years. You are, after all, the man who can get it. Andy, and they figure if you can get them batteries for their transistor radios and cartons of Luckies or lids of reefer. If you can put them in touch with a guy who used a knife, sure you have. Andy agreed, but you don't do it. Because guys like us, Red, we know there's a third choice. An alternative to staying Simon pure or bathing in a filth in the slime. It's alternative that grown-ups all over the world pick. Your balance off your walk through the hog wallow against what it gains. You choose the lesser of two evils and try to keep your good intentions in front of you. And I guess you judge how well you're doing by how well you sleep at night and what your dreams are like.
Good intentions, I said and laughed. I know all about that, Andy. A fellow can toddle right up to hell on that road. Don't you believe it, he said, growing somber. This is hell, right here in the shank. They sell pills and I tell them what to do with the money. But I've also got the library, and I know of over 24 guys who have used the books in there to help them pass their high school equivalency test. Maybe, when they get out of here, they'll be able to crawl off the shit heap. When we needed that second room back in 1957, I got it, because they wanted to keep me happy. I work cheap, that's the trade-off. And you've got your own private quarters? Sure, that's the way I like it.
The prison population has risen slowly through the 50s, and it damn near exploded in the 60s. What with every college-age kid in America wanting to try dope, and the perfectly ridiculous penalties for the use of a little reefer, but in all that time, Andy never had a cellmate except for a big silent Indian named Normandy.
Probably just Normandy.
Like all Indians in the Shawshank, he was called Chief, and Normandy didn't last long. A lot of the other long-timers thought Andy was crazy, but Andy just smiled. He lived alone, and he liked it that way. And as he said, they liked to keep him happy. He worked cheap.
Prison time is slow time. Sometimes you'd swear it's stop time, but it passes. It passes. George Donahue departed the scene in a welter of newspaper headlines shouting scandal and nest feathering. Stamas succeeded him, and for the next 6 years of Shawshank was kind of a living hell. During the reign of Greg Stamas, the beds in the infirmary and the cells in the solitary wing were always full. One day in 1958, I looked at myself in a small shaving mirror I kept in my cell and saw a 40-year-old man looking back at me. A kid had come back in 1938. A kid with a big mop of carroty red hair, half crazy with remorse, thinking about suicide. That kid was gone. The red hair was going gray and starting to recede. There were crow's tracks around the eyes. On that day, I could see an old man inside, waiting his time to come out. It scared me. Nobody wants to grow old and stir.
Stamas went early in 1959. There had been several investigation reporters sniffling around, and one of them even did 4 months under an assumption name for a crime made up out of a whole cloth. They were getting ready to drag out scandal and nest feathering again, but before they could bring the hammer down on him, Stamas ran. I can't understand the boy, can I ever? If he had been tried to convict, if he had been tried and convicted, he could have ended up right in here. If so, he might have lasted all of 5 hours. Brian Hadley had gone 2 years earlier. That sucker had a heart attack and took an early retirement.
Andy never got touched by the Stamas affair. In early 1959, a new warden was appointed, and a new assistant warden, and a new chief of guards. For the next 8 months or so, Andy was just another con again. It was during that period that Normandy, the big half-breed Passamaquoddy, shared Andy's cell with him. Then everything just started up again. Normandy was moved out, and Andy was living in solitary splendor again. The names at the top change, but the rackets never do.
I talked to Norman once a day, Andy, nice Della. Norman said it was hard to make out anything he said because he had a hard hair lip and a cleft palate. His words all came out in a slush, like I liked it there. He never made fun, but he didn't want me there. I could tell, big shrug. I was glad to go. Me, bad draft. Bad draft in that cell. All the time cold. He don't let nobody touch his things. That once nice man never made fun, but big draft.